So my name is Bert Delisle. For a couple of years I've been making these yarn caddies, or yarn butlers, called by a lot of different names. I make mine all out of wood. There's a base, has a post in it. The hole in the spindle is slightly larger than the post. The depth is critical so that it doesn't touch. Just clear of the base, and they spin beautifully, very little noise, well balanced. But today I was at the yarn shop and dropped off a few of these, and they're very popular for the knitters, but they also have a need for a smaller one. Apparently there's some people that are knitting and crocheting with very fine wool and fine fibers, and they really like these. They really like the idea that they're made of wood and they spin nicely, but they'd like this spindle here to be substantially smaller, and it doesn't need to be so tall. I make these in 7-inch tall, and I also make a 10-inch tall one for the people that use the big balls of yarn, but now the little balls of yarn are coming in vogue. So today I'm going to try and use these small pieces and make a smaller version of this yarn caddy. So I'll reset the camera and get my lathe ready, and we'll carry on with that. This is the first video that I'm doing where I'm actually voicing over anything, so I may stumble and bumble along on a few things, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, I start with my stronghold chuck, number 3 jaws. Blank is roughly 3 inches by 3 inches. We want to be able to chuck it up so we can turn a recess in it, so we'll be able to chuck it up with a smaller chuck on a recess. So that's the first job. I like to mark the center just so I know where it's at, and I also like to try and get a rough idea of where the outside is going to be when I get to turn that. Grab my face shield. Use my recessing tool. So that base should fit my 50mm jaws. And just to get 2 pieces ready here, I'll just put a recess in here so I can grab them once I change the jaws. I got to give a shout out to Mike Peace, who showed me how to make this on one of his videos. It's a tenon cutting tool. It allows me to get in even when the tailstock's in place. I can still get in there and make a nice little tenon. And the angles are ground so that they match up with my dovetails on my jaws. Switch to my Talon chuck with standard jaws, standard dovetail jaws, in expansion mode. Now we'll just find out where the center is here. while we're here, I'm going to drill the hole in here for the post. The post is going to be a 5/16 piece of dowel, and it will protrude out about 2 inches. And that looks about right. So I put a burn ring on here because this diameter is almost a perfect circle for the stronghold jaws. And with the stronghold jaws I'll be able to grab it there without marking the wood. Finish the bottom. That's the base. I'll do a little bit of sanding on this a little later, but just want to get the parts made first. This is my prototype for this miniature yarn caddy, so I'm not going to worry about sanding it until I get all of the parts finished and make sure the process works. So this is going to be the top. And the top's going to be a little smaller than the base. So what I like to do is just to get a sense of how big it is. We'll just roughly get a dimension of the major diameter and transfer that onto here. Just check to make sure this is that should be fine. Okay, so that should mark the maximum diameter so that it'll fit on the base and be slightly less than the base. So what we'll normally do now is we're going to drill a hole in here that'll accept this, but we'll also want to drill a hole in here to mount the spindle. I'm going to glue the spindle into this top portion, and then I'm going to turn it all as one unit, so then it'll be balanced and perfectly centered on this piece, which helps when we go to balance it. Drilling the hole in here first ensures that we have a nice straight alignment so that the disc doesn't wobble. And because we put a 5/16 inch dowel, we want a little bit of flexibility on the hole size. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting in a 3/8 inch hole in this piece, so the dowel should fit loosely. And we're going to drill this all the way through. Important to note that this is going to be the top of the yarn spinner piece. The chucking mechanism is going to be hidden, because when it's spinning, this will be the top where the yarn will sit, and this flange on the bottom will be hidden, so it doesn't really come into play. And that's lots of slack there, so that should spin nicely. And because I put a I need to put something on here so that I can grab it with a bigger chuck. I may have to adjust this for size, but at least this will gives me a chance to take a look and see what it's going to look like. Okay, so here's the base, and here's the top. And I can see already that the top is a little bit too big, so we'll just take it down a little bit right now. I like to cauterize the wood by burning it, because that actually hardens the wood, so that when you're putting the big jaws on and grabbing them, the hardened wood is a little easier on the wood. It doesn't leave marks, so that's not too bad. I mean, I can clean that up a little bit. Again, I'm doing this as a prototype, so I want to make sure that things are going to work, and then if it works, then I'll make a paper plan. That's going to be all right. And the next piece is the spindle. Okay, before I do that, I guess I should drill the top hole to accept the spindle. And I'm thinking I'm going to probably go with because I'm drilling a hole, a 3/8 hole. I'll be drilling a 3/8 hole in this. I want to have enough meat around here so that it will glue in there and be strong enough. But I'm thinking that 1/2 inch would probably be too small, but 5/8, 3/8 hole in a 5/8 would give me an 1/8 on either side. That might be enough. Let's see how big this is. This is roughly 1 inch. So if I take, if I go 7/8, that should probably give me a little extra room. And like I say, this is my prototype, so if it doesn't work, I can figure it out next time. Turn the speed down. Yeah, I'd like to go in probably that far, length of the bit. That leaves a little bit on the bottom, so that on the bottom all you see is the 3/8 hole. That's roughly a 1/2 inch deep. That should be more than adequate. These little tiny spindles or little tiny balls of yarn don't weigh very much, so as long as it's strong enough to withstand a drop or two, we're probably in good shape. Okay, so I'll take this off. This is just a little scrap piece of maple I had kicking around the shop, so we'll see how it works. Should be long enough. Talking about the length, we measured a spool up at the shop today, and the shop looked like the spools are about 4 inches, so this piece is 6 inches long. If I put a tenon on one end and just kind of see what it looks like, I might leave it 4 inches, I might leave it 5 inches. We'll see how it goes. When I turn down and get rid of some of these pieces on here, we'll see what it looks like. Got my wrench here sharpened on the top. It makes it real easy to make tenons. Now while I was looking at this, I was thinking 3/4 inch would probably have been enough. But because I already drilled the hole 7/8, I'm committed on this one here to be 7/8. Well, that's a little bit loose, so I'm going to put a tenon on the other side and we'll try it again. That's 966. So the hole in the block is 894. 896 approximately. So we'll take this down a bit more. That's perfect. Nice and snug. So that's going to be the one that's going to work. Now I'll just take this down a little bit, leave a little bit of a bulb here, and take this down to probably 1/2 inch or so. I'm going to make this about if I make it 5 inches from here, with a half an inch in, it'll give me a 5-inch overall sticking out. Right about there. Let's see how that works. When I've been making these yarn caddies, I've been using a product called Osmo. I like the satin finish or the clear. So Osmo top oil, it's a hard wax oil. It fills really nicely. You put it on, let it set for an hour, put a second coat on, wipe off the excess, and then let it cure for 24 hours. And then when you come back out, you take it and put it on a Beal buffing system, and it gives you a real nice, soft, warm feel. There, that's perfect fit. Okay, off camera, I'm going to get this glued in, and then I'll come back and we'll chuck this up on the lathe and make sure this is running true, make any final adjustments, and cut the top off, and we'll see how it works. That'll keep it nice and centered. So the glue sets up. And that looks like it's running pretty good. Now we just got to drill a hole, and we'll drill the hole into this piece here deep enough so that this will ride just slightly proud of the base. And so the 3/8 hole looks like there'll be lots of material in here for the 3/8 hole. So I'm going to go to the drill press. I've got a jig on my drill press where I have a hole that I can lay this in. I support it, and we use this hole here as the guide, and then the drill press makes the hole nice and straight. I'll come back after I'm done at the drill press. Forgot to mention that while I was turning this, I should have glued it into here, and I could have spun this on the lathe and shaped the end of this a little bit. I'll probably end up doing that as well. So I round the end over on this. Once this is slightly rounded on the edges, this fits in. As you can see, it's still about a 1/4 inch proud, but it's and it's wobbling a little bit, so I'm going to go another eighth of an inch, and it should be okay. Okay, so there we've got it. It spins pretty good. I'm going to glue this in, chuck it up, wax it, and we'll see where it goes from there. And it looks like I need to do a little maintenance on my Talon chuck here. It's not wanting to. There we go. So it's got a little bit of a wobble, and it touches just a little bit. But by the time I sand this off, clean this edge up, clean this edge up, there'll be a 1/16 of an inch or a 32nd of an inch of clear space, and that'll never change. So I think that's going to be successful. I'm going to take this back over to the yarn shop and show them and ask them for their feedback, and if it works, I'll probably get an order for probably half a dozen of them. Anyway, there's a yarn caddy butler, all made out of wood, and it didn't take very long to do. Thanks a lot for watching. So after a little bit more work on this, we now have a miniature spindle that spins very freely. I had to adjust the shaft to go back up to a 3/8 inch shaft. Had to make it a little bit deeper so that the center of balance is up here, so that it'll spin freely. On the shorter stem, it was wobbling too much. I didn't like it. It just looked like the center of balance was too close to the bottom. So now the spindle runs at least 2.5 inches up into the shaft. Weight's on the bottom. Spins real nice and free. This is roughly, maybe 5/8 of an inch. Taper slightly up a little bit, and I think it's going to be good. I'm going to take it over to the Fiber Arch store and get their feel on it and see what they think. Thank you kindly.